Sunday live stream. Believe it or not, this is the 17th show since the COVID shutdown. I'm glad you could join me today. I'm working solo, so all of the information on how to tip, if you are so inclined, is in the comments at the very beginning. And if you're watching on YouTube, it's in the chat section or in the description of the video. So I'm going to get started with this. Well, half the people are looking to rumble, and the other half are spoiling for a fight. The logic that they're using is all jumbled, but who needs facts when you know you're right? Well, half the people nowadays are bonkers, and the other half have all gone insane. Everybody everywhere looks angry, and they need to blame somebody for their pain. Now half the news you get today is phony, and the other half you get today is fake. But what's real is the independent journalist who gets tortured but refuses to break. Half the people have lost their marbles, and the other half have all lost their minds. On top of that, we've become so heartless. Underneath it all, we must have lost our spines. Half the people are just plain cuckoo, and the other half are just plain Looney Tunes. Bite your tongue, you can't talk sense to any of them. They hate you when you burst their balloons. Now half the people have gone crazy, and the other half have all gone mad. Well, I could make a fortune selling bridges if I hadn't sold the last one that I had. And half the people have no idea, and the other half, they haven't got a clue. They'll believe anything anyone will tell them, unless it can be proven to be true. Half the people are just plain cuckoo, and the other half are just plain Looney Tunes. Bite your tongue, you can't talk sense to any of them. They hate you when you burst their balloons. Now half the people are talking rubbish, and the other half are all just talking crap. You've got to be careful and remind yourself not to take the bait or step into the trap. 'Cause half the people nowadays are bonkers, and the other half have all gone insane. Everybody everywhere looks angry, and they need to blame somebody for their pain. Half the people are just plain cuckoo, and the other half are just plain Looney Tunes. Bite your tongue, you can't talk sense to any of them. They hate you when you burst their balloons. They hate you when you burst their balloons. Well, I hope it's a nice day wherever you are. It's a little bit drizzly here, overcast in Asheville, North Carolina. I hope you don't hear my neighbor. He picked today to use his leaf blower. I can hear him, but I don't know if it's getting picked up on the microphone or not. I wonder if you saw that incredible World Series game last night and that amazing ending to it. I want to do a song about a team that won the World Series a few years back, the Chicago Cubs. I used to have a song called The Curse of the Billy Goat, and the Chicago Cubs didn't win the World Series for many, 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 many years because of this curse that was put on the team by a fellow who brought a billy goat to a game and was told he was not allowed in with that goat, so he put a curse on the team. Lasted many years. And finally, a few years back, the Cubs won the World Series, and they broke that curse. And people told me I needed to write a new song, and I really didn't want to write a new song, and I kept swearing to everybody I was not going to write a new song, but here it is. It was the 13th of never. It had been a very long wait for another week with 2 Wednesdays. Hadn't happened since 1908. Red snowflakes were falling. It was a very blue moon. And all the folks in Chicago were singing a Steve Goodman tune. Cats were chasing dogs that day. Water ran uphill. Flocks of pigs were flying. And the champagne had been chilled. It was a short-sleeved night in November. The wind didn't even blow. And from hell they were reporting more than 7 feet of snow. They finally had a was a hearse. There was nothing but joy in Mudville. They threw a funeral for the curse. Well, no one alive can remember the last time Easter fell in May, or another evening in the autumn celebrating Christmas Day. But the fish had climbed the poplar and the cows were coming home. The sun rose in the west, the day the curse was overthrown. Now some said that they were ready. They had hung on just for this. They had crossed off all the other things above it on the list. The ghosts no longer haunted, now that they could finally rest. And old men and their fathers wept. Love was unrepressed. They finally had a parade. Leading there was a hearse. There was nothing but joy in Mudville. They threw a funeral for the curse. Well, now anything's liable to happen, so keep your eyes on the dominoes. Expect the unexpected. Always wear clean underclothes, 'cause it was in a month of Sundays, the second Wednesday of the week. There was hugging in the tavern, lots of kissing on the cheek. They finally had a parade. Leading there was a hearse. There was nothing but joy in Mudville. They threw a funeral for the curse. Yeah, they finally had their parade. Leading there was a hearse. There was nothing but joy in Mudville. They threw a funeral for the curse. There was nothing but joy in Mudville. They threw a funeral for the curse. So I just want to mention, like I do every week, that there's no ticket price to watch my live streams. And I rely instead on your generosity and your thoughtfulness to tip in any amount that you are comfortable with. This is my only means to make a living these days, so I'm grateful for whatever you can offer. If you're interested in picking up CDs, you can do that at chuckbrodsky.com. And if you're interested in picking up digital downloads, which are on a pay-what-you-want basis, you can go to bandcamp.com. And the URL, the actual URL for my page on Bandcamp is at the beginning of the comments. And if you're interested, you could also become my patron. There's a link to my Patreon page. So, I'm going to stick with baseball for another song here. This is a song about an umpire who blew a call that cost the pitcher a perfect game. It would have been the final out of the game. And the umpire's name was Jim Joyce. And after watching the replay at the end of the game, back in the locker room, because this predated the use of replay to overturn calls, when he saw the replay, he was beside himself, and he called the opposing pitcher over to his own locker room and apologized. So he was a stand-up guy. Jim Joyce, he's a stand-up guy. Listen to me, and I'll tell you why. He made a mistake, and it made him cry, and he didn't go fishing for an alibi. Jim Joyce, stand-up guy. Pitcher was thrown a perfect game, got the first 2 outs of the final frame. Ball was hit, he won the race. He caught the throw with his foot on the base. Jim Joyce, stand-up guy. Joyce called the batter safe at first, a putrid call, the all-time worst, a travesty. The guy was out, the replays showed beyond a doubt. Jim Joyce, stand-up guy. With half a smile to mask his grief, the pitcher stood in disbelief. He never lost his dignity. His eyes though said, "You're kidding me." Jim Joyce, stand-up guy. Well, there still was one more out to get. The game, it wasn't over yet. It should have been. He caught the throw with plenty of time, but there you go, Jim Joyce, stand-up guy. In the locker room, Joyce watched the tape, and they left them all bent out of shape. He sat a while alone, distressed, outside the door of the bloodthirsty press. Jim Joyce, stand-up guy. I cost that kid a perfect game. He stood up sobbing and took the blame. I was convinced of what I saw. I just missed the bleeping call. Jim Joyce, stand-up guy. Well, Jim Joyce, he's a stand-up guy. He called for the pitcher, please come by. He face-to-face apologized. Jim Joyce's tears were Texas size. Jim Joyce, stand-up guy. Well, nobody's perfect, the pitcher would say in an interview the very next day. He's only human, he made a mistake. I hope everybody will cut him a break. Jim Joyce, stand-up guy. Well, the umpire had an imperfect game. It happens sometimes, and it's a shame, but all you can do is stand up tall and say you're sorry you blew the call. Jim Joyce, stand-up guy. Yeah, Jim Joyce, he's a stand-up guy. Listen to me, and I'll tell you why. He made a mistake, and it made him cry, and he didn't go fishing for an alibi. Jim Joyce, stand-up guy. Jim Joyce, stand-up guy. Jim Joyce, stand-up guy. And a really interesting little bit of trivia here. It was only about a month after that game that Jim Joyce was entering the ballpark in Arizona for another game when he saw one of the stadium employees collapse, and he saved her life by issuing mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. So Jim Joyce, stand-up guy and a hero. The house he was born in was only next door. His country had vanished, his people no more. Out in the garden, some little boys played. He had only come back to retrieve Lily's braids. The neighbors were home to the word they were true. They'd kept them safe like they said they would do. Despite any orders they might have obeyed, it was righteous of them to have kept Lily's braids. Word had come down, the Germans were near. They had taken a village a few miles from here. There was no place to run, there was no place to hide. It was no longer safe to be going outside. Whispers of horrors, what they did to the Jews, sorting into piles the clothing and shoes. At the railway station, shaving their heads, then taking the hair to make pillows and beds. Lily's hair had never been cut. The curtains were drawn and the doors were shut. It had hung to her knees just moments before. The braids would be safe with the people next door. Lily's mother quietly prayed. She said, "Come here, child, don't be afraid. I promise you one day we'll pin them back on after the war, when the soldiers are gone." The house he was born in was only next door. Lily's brother returned sometime after the war. It was all he had left, and how heavy they weighed. Well, maybe not as much now that he'd retrieve Lily's braids. Maybe not as much now Those braids used to belong to a little girl by the name of Lily Hirsch from Transylvania, I believe. And they are on permanent display at the Holocaust Museum in Jerusalem. Yad Vashem, it's called. And if you should ever go there, you could see those very braids with your own eyes, too. So, I'm going to move to Ireland now, one of my favorite places in the world. And by the way, I'd love to know where it is in the world that you might be watching from today. My previous live streams have had people watching from countries as diverse as South Africa and Uganda, and Denmark and Norway, and Sweden and Germany, and Australia, and England, Scotland, Ireland, France, Germany, Canada, and all across the USA. So, love to know where you are. Also like to mention the fact that if you're interested, I do private concerts over Zoom, and we can book something like that at any time for you and your friends. Up to 100 different households can tune in on my account, and I tend to open it up about a half an hour early so we can all meet and greet and mingle, and then after the show we have a bit of a meet and greet and question and answers if you want. So feel free to contact me either through Facebook or chuck@chuckbrodsky.com. Love to do a show for you. It could be for a birthday, for an anniversary, or just to get a bunch of people together. So during the famine in Ireland in the 1840s, a lot of people were buried in mass graves. People were dying in such numbers, and they were so poor it wasn't possible to give people proper burials. So many were thrown into mass graves. There's a place outside of the town of Skibbereen in the west part of County Cork, Abbey Strury Cemetery, that has such a mass grave where about 10,000 people were buried. And one such person, a little boy by the name of Tom Guerin, he was buried. He was 2 or 3 years old at the time. And a day or two later, the undertakers or the grave diggers were trying to make room for more corpses, and they plunged their shovels into the dirt, and they struck Tom Guerin's knees, and they heard him cry out, and they realized somebody was alive in there, and they saved him. And Tom Guerin grew up to become quite a popular character in those parts. He was a bard. He became a bard, and he would walk all over the west part of County Cork. And the bard's role was very important back then. He was the news teller. He would create poems telling the news of the day. And he was very beloved for that. And all he ever wanted for his efforts was the county council to give him a new pair of shoes. And he finally got them after 20 years. So this song is called New Shoes for Tom Guerin. Verses for one pair of shoes. Wander the countryside spreading the news. Travel Ross, Scarborough, and all of West Cork. Well, some head to Boston and others New York. I lived in the poorhouse, I slept on the floor. There was room to sit down, but not an inch more. The people who died were carried away without ceremony and without delay. Sweeping the land on my little shoulder, it lay its cold hand. People who died carried away. Well, the gravedigger's shovel plunged in the dirt, struck me so hard it must have hurt. Though some say I moaned and some say I screamed, all agreed wasn't as dead as I seemed. Now I roam all the world, admire each scene. Ratepayers I've never been. I only appeal to you now for a pair of robes
so many people get lowered down twice. I don't recommend it, just once should suffice. I'm the boy who was buried and dug up alive, the poet, the genius, the one who survived. I rose from the dead in the year 48, when a grave at the Abbey had been near my fate. Since then, for subsistence, I've done all my best. The one shoe points eastward and the other points west. I roam all the world, admire each scene. Tax on the ratepayers, I've never been. Only appeal to you now for a pair of brogues, and I'll vanish again into air. Yes, I only appeal to you now for a pair of brogues, and I'll vanish again into air.
Here's a story about a man that I met outside of a folk festival in Texas. There's an 18-day long folk festival called the Kerrville Folk Festival. And I've been going every year since 1992, with 3 exceptions now, including this past year because it was canceled. But about 25 years ago, I had a girlfriend named Annie, and we went down from Asheville, North Carolina to Kerrville, Texas, about 1,400 miles each way. And we stayed all 18 days that year. So there was a point halfway through the festival maybe where we needed to head into the town and resupply, buy some groceries, and maybe do laundry. And so on the way into town, which is about a 10-mile drive, we saw a guy selling peaches off the side of his truck on the shoulder of the road, and we pulled over to buy some. And Fredericksburg, Texas peaches, the local ones down there, are the best, and we had to have some. Only trouble was it was a really hot day, and we just wanted to buy the peaches and get back in the air-conditioned vehicle, but the man selling them wanted to talk, and he talked and talked and talked, and he went off on one tangent to the next tangent to the next tangent. And I started to take little baby steps backwards, hoping he'd read my body language. And he just maintained that same distance, talking and talking and talking and talking at me, till finally he apologized out of nowhere because he had failed to introduce himself, which is a proper thing to do in the South. And I didn't know that because I was brand new to the South, but that's how it is. So he told us his name was Bill. I said, Bill, very nice to meet you. I'm Chuck, and that's Annie. And he said, Annie, huh? I had a woman once in my life named Annie. And he started a whole new story. And I'm glad I paid attention because he told me this.
We stopped for peaches at a roadside stand. Man said his name was Bill. Said, I'm Chuck and this is Annie. He said Annie was the one and only true love of his life. They met at his wedding, but by then he had a wife. It was during the reception in the spring of '64. She, his newlywed's best friend, followed him out the ballroom door. Maybe his ring got smaller, maybe his finger swelled, maybe he made a big mistake, maybe time would tell. Bill asked, do you feel what I feel? And he said, I do. And Bill was at a loss, wondering now, what should he do? He did what he had to. He'd just taken a wife. She would take good care of him for the rest of her life. Bill and Annie fought the urge. They saw each other often. Well, she was there in black the day Bill's wife lay in her coffin. By then she'd gotten married. By then she'd moved away. Should ask Bill for his blessings. He said I was okay. Well, Bill said taste the peaches, and he cut us each a slice. They were a little on the small side, but they sure tasted nice. Do you think I did the right thing, Bill asked, though I knew he knew. So I answered with a question. Asked him, Bill, do you? Well, he said, Annie, pleased to meet you. Nice to meet you, Chuck. Annie and I, we drove away in Annie's pickup truck with a box of 20 peaches, a homegrown tomato too, and a couple of things to think about, and every now and then I do.
I'm going to go back to Ireland for another song. I used to tour Ireland long before I started doing the group tours with Innisfree Tours. I used to tour there myself, playing shows when I had a booking agent before he passed away, the late, great Larry Roddy. Miss you there. And on a couple of my tours, I played a show in a little place called Carrick-on-Shannon in County Leitrim. And after the first time I was there, the proprietor, or publican as they are called, invited me to stick around and have a pint of Guinness with him. So I did, and I figured, we'd have a nice chat and sit there for a while, but after maybe 10 minutes, he told me to drink up, finish my pint. He had to close the place down and lock up, get home, get a good night's sleep, because he said he had to be back to open it up in the morning. And I asked him what time did he open his pub, and he said 9:30 in the morning. So I decided anybody that opens a pub at 9:30 in the morning ought to have a song written about them, and this is called the 9:30 Pint.
Well, it's not so big a town, and I know all of the locals. Some come in to read newspapers, some forget their bifocals. The strangers have a home here, trust me, I know all kinds. 9:30 in the morning is when I start pouring pints. The 9:30 pint can set the morning right for the one who just got off after working all the night. It's a stop along the way as he makes his journey home. Before he pulls the curtains close, disconnects the phone. The 9:30 pint for whoever wanders in. Well, it's not for me to wonder or ask where they might have been. If they passed out in the bushes, or if he caught a couple winks. Well, I don't make it my business to know why they need a drink. The 9:30 pint, perhaps to start a person's day. Well, who am I to judge? Who am I to say? 'Cause if they leave here happier than when they first come in, I'll be here tomorrow morning should the punter call again. business comes in through the door. So what are you having, sir? What's it gonna be? I can tell you're not a local, you from across the sea. So top of the morning to ya, it's another fine day. I turn away no one, 'cause I have bills to pay. See that pub across the street, the one up top the hill. If I don't pour the early one, you can bet they will. So before you rush to judgment and condemn a decent man, allow me to introduce myself and offer you my hand. Just your friendly publican, you're very welcome here. I open at 9:30, you don't have to drink beer.
So once again, in case you joined me late today, if you're interested in tipping, all of the information on how to do that is at the very beginning of the comments today, or if you're watching on YouTube, it would be at the very beginning of the chat window. You might have to open up that chat window to see it. And anything that you can give today, I would be extremely grateful for. This is, like I've been saying, my one and only means of surviving these days until I can get back out on the road, which isn't going to happen anytime soon, unfortunately. So I think it's time for another baseball song. Although, before I play it, I do want to talk up my Patreon page, because Patreon is very important to me right now. It's a way that you can support me on a monthly basis. And in exchange for that, out of gratitude, I share certain things with my patrons that I won't share elsewhere, like first drafts of new songs or videos of new songs before I ever put them up on Facebook or YouTube. I'll be doing a little private concert for my patrons this week. Little things like meet and greet, photographs, stories that I might share. And there, you can support me at whatever level you want to, but you can do so even for as low as $1 a month, and that will give you the same access as it gives the people that pay me thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars a month. So I hope you'll at least take a look at my page and see if it's something that might interest you. But it gives me a certain sense of security to know that at least that much is going to come in every month, what the very generous patrons have pledged. And without your support, I don't know if I'm going to make it. With your support, I know that I will. And here we are, 7 months later after the shutdown. Still kicking. Got a bunch of new songs I've been working on that I hope to unveil in the next couple of weeks for you. If you join my Patreon page, you'll hear them before anybody else does. So, over the years, I've released, I think, 22 baseball songs. I've put out 2 entire CDs of the baseball ballads, 1 and 2. And I've continued to put them out on subsequent CDs, baseball songs. So I probably have now written 28 or 29 of them, and it's almost time for a Baseball Ballads Volume 3. But here is the very first baseball song I ever wrote. It's called Lefty. Funny thing was, it took me years to get around to playing it for people because I just assumed that people would find a song about sports to be trite, and nobody would want to hear a song about baseball. And what did I know back then?
on there against all that good advice. He used to play that thinker with that sinker ball went south. Then they started calling him for going to his mouth. Lefty holds the record for most strikeouts in a game. Once upon a time, they really threw a ball of flame. Somewhere she'd gone gracefully when his time finally came. And they put Lefty on waivers and nobody laid a claim. And it's a God almighty shame he got too old to play the game. Where he made himself a name and they called him Lefty. For a good number of years, bleach bums all loved him. They were tanked up in their beer. He used to throw that heater, but the radar does not lie. When Lefty lays one up there, he can't kiss that thing goodbye. It's a God almighty shame he got too old to play the game. Where he made himself a name and they called him Lefty. Of the seventh, and the runner just got on, and now they're calling for Lefty. Lefty's not the one. There's capital in Lefty, so say it with respect. He's senior Lefty down in Mexico, and he's Lefty in Quebec. Smoke you, it could fool you, throw a curve around your neck. It could paint one on the corners, it could fill the upper deck. It's a God almighty shame he got too old to play the game. Where he made himself a name and they call him Lefty. It's a God almighty shame he got too old game. Where he made himself a name and they called him Lefty.
So ordinarily, right around this time of year, I'd be packing up my car and getting ready to head up through Cincinnati, Ann Arbor, Michigan, and ultimately to Harbor Springs, Michigan for the Lambs Retreat for Songwriters. And I'm going to miss it this year. It's actually happening in a responsible and socially distanced way. So if you live anywhere near Michigan and you want to do something absolutely fantastic, if you're interested in songwriting, if you are a songwriter or want to learn how, Lambs Retreat is really cool. Great bunch of people. And it's something that I like to go to even when I'm not hired to be on the staff. I've written a lot of my songs there over the years. And here's one that was an assignment for me. Everybody gets a songwriting assignment who attends the retreat, including the teachers. And it's a different one for each person. They're all created fresh every year. John Lamb, the director, creates about 50 of them for each of the 2 weekends. And it's something I look forward to every time I come there. I've written a lot of my songs that you know were songs written as an assignment. Here's my favorite one of them all. I was told to write a song swearing off of the manic pixie dream girl.
Girls who smoked and drank and told off color jokes, who had that certain kind was all it took. The ones that had that certain spunk, kinda girlish and kinda punk. The girls you make excuses for as you lead them out the door. I used to like them fancy free, the way they would pretend to be. They wore all black, they had long hair, they acted like they didn't care. Full of beads, great big blur. They used to fall for girls like her. They couldn't possibly all be true. 500 words when 10 would do. They used to fall for girls like that, work the mic and play the strat, whose stomachs were completely flat. They would complain that they were fat. The kind of girls I would pursue, I made them up, they became true. I think I married one or two. They made me tea and they wrote haiku. I was always drawn to the mankind who would say whatever was on their mind. Girls like that sunk on my ships carelessly with their loose lips. Yet for one enchanted kiss, I'd betray myself for girls like this. Wild-eyed, star tattoo, little crazy were a few. Girls like those, they have their charms, red flags and loud alarms. I loved it when they were in my arms, and I swear my love was true. Well, now it takes a little more to turn me on than it did before. Certain things I can't ignore, certain things I do. Shirts and drawstring pants, who bang on drums and don't eat meat and walk around in their bare feet. Girls like that wouldn't last not even 1/2 minute past. The moment that the clock struck 12, they'd leave me dancing with myself. Opposites at times attract like chemicals, they can react. Once appealed to me, now don't seem so real to me. Girls like those, they have their charms, red flags and loud alarms. I loved it when they were in my arms, and I swear my love was true. Well, now it takes a little more to turn me on than it did before. Certain things I can't ignore, certain things I do.
Here's an old one. Many years ago, before I ever put out my first CD, I put out a live cassette called Live from Spam City, and this was on it. It also was on my first CD, A Finger Painter's Murals.
Lived an old horse trainer. He used to work for the man who owned about 25 stables on 25 pieces of land. His name was Mr. Hardy. trainer's name was Gus, and Hardy's business was racing, and he owned the two of us. Now Gus, he hated racing, it was the horses that he loved. And every time Mr. Hardy would come around, he'd pretend like he was being tough. He called him Heartless Hardy, cussed him underneath his breath for the breeding of the horses and the running them to death. Oh, my father, he was famous, and he won the Triple Crown. Mama won 5 ribbons in a horse show back in town. And I sold for $1 million on the day I was born. I was gonna be a champion, Mr. Hardy was sure. Well, they pumped me up one morning with something those officials would never detect. And I remember that cold steel needle spending a lifetime in my neck. I never knew that race was fixed, only that I was supposed to win. The jockey was tall in his saddle, his breath was stinking of gin. Well, he pushed me a little too hard, stumbled and shattered my leg. Mr. Hardy called in a specialist who said I'd never race again. Said my promise, it was broken. Mr. Hardy sipping on champagne ordered me out of my misery, but I was too numb to feel any pain. Oh, my father, he was famous, he won the Triple Crown. Mama won 5 ribbons in a horse show back in town. Well, I sold for $1 million on the day I was born. I was gonna be a champion, Mr. Hardy was sure. Well, they led me out to the stables where that mercy killing would be done. And I was thinking about what might have been and all that I might have won. I was thinking about being put out to pasture when my time might have finally come. And remembering how before I could walk, they were teaching me how to run. Well, I saw they were going to shoot me, and I don't know why they would. I couldn't run any more races, so I guess that made me no good. Mr. Hardy handed Gus the rifle. Gus, he cried, and he stroked my mane. That was the last thing I remember before Gus unbridled my reins. Oh, my father, he was famous, and he won the Triple Crown. Mama won 5 ribbons in a horse show back in town. And I sold for $1 million on the day I was born. I was gonna be a champion, Mr. Hardy was sure.
I used to have these terrible arguments with my dad back when I was in high school. You know, he would always tell me how, well, I would tell him I wanted to go to law school, become a lawyer one day. And of course, he and my mom insisted that I become a folk singer. So ultimately, he won out. Here I am. This is called Talk to My Lawyer.
I was walking outside the city hall and I slipped and I had a terrible fall. Negligence on the part of I don't care who. I fell so hard I was seeing stars, dollar signs, men from Mars. The man who helped me up said I ought to sue. He was a lawyer. He was all out of breath. Well, once I had an accident, not too bad, little dent. New Mercedes hit me from the rear. Man got out in a three-piece suit and asked if $1,000 would do, and I said, let me think for a minute here. Gotta talk to my lawyer. I might have whiplash, might have trauma. Let's not talk petty cash. I got a witness, put a hand on the Bible. Jerry, Jerry, hallelujah. He might be liable. Well, my mama said, Uncle Jim, I just don't know what's wrong with him. That son of mine is an old big wazoo. Well, I have never overheard such a bunch of slanderous words. I tell you, Mama, got a mind to sue. Gonna talk to my lawyer. Mama, that was vicious. Defamation of character, wrongful and malicious. I've got a witness, put a hand on the Bible. Jerry, Jerry, hallelujah. You might be liable, Mama. I was trying to open up my map when I spilled my coffee on my lap. Well, how was I supposed to know it was going to be hot? Went back to that fast food place, to the manager with the happy face. I said, I want the name of whoever brewed that pot. Gonna talk to my lawyer. Think we got a pretty good case. All I need is some crutches. Maybe I'll put on a neck brace. I got a witness, put a hand on the Bible. Jury, jury, hallelujah. Somebody's liable. Well, I have time for maybe two more here. So thought I'd do another one that was songwriting assignment at the Lambs Retreat for Songwriters. And once again, if you live anywhere in that part of the country, up near Michigan, be well worth this wonderful weekend coming up in another week or two, I suppose. So the premise behind this song was that supposedly in some kind of a formal dinner ball setting, and a woman taps me on the shoulder and asks if I'd like to dance. I don't dance, not ever. Oh, maybe with fingers on a piano or a guitar. But I don't dance, can't dance, ain't gonna happen, don't even imagine it. It is a mathematical and scientific impossibility that can be proven. There was one certain girl I was hoping to meet. Would have asked her to dance, but for my two left feet, she wasn't sitting with anyone else. I was just sitting there all by myself. I said, I didn't dance, I have two left feet. To those other girls standing over me in my seat. Besides, it really wasn't my kind of beat. This wasn't the girl I was hoping to meet. I wasn't attracted, not on first glance. She wouldn't go away, I didn't want to dance. She lifted me up to my two left feet. My eyes went for the girl I was hoping to meet. Well, I was thinking I should make a break for the door. She pulled me out there onto the dance floor. The band started in on an old-fashioned waltz. She didn't lead, so I did by default. It was awkward enough, those very first steps. Stepped on her right toes, and then on her left. Evading her eyes, I tried to be discreet, keeping tabs on the girl I was hoping to meet. lifted up to the small of my back. Touching the nerve, I shot her a glance. She said, I thought you told me that you couldn't dance. She pointed down at my right foot, gone all the right places, wherever I'd put it. She followed me when I spun her around. When I dipped her all the way down, the way her hair fell back and hung to the floor, the way we locked eyes then and forevermore. The thing about beauty, and I don't know why, sometimes you don't see it till it pokes you in the eye. One song ended and another began. We exchanged names and applauded the band. I guess I never did let go of her hand. For the next couple hours, we danced and we danced. Now we go out dancing every Saturday night. She dresses up, she's quite a sight. This was the girl I didn't want to meet. That was the guy with the two left feet.
You ready for a magic trick? Let's see. Abracadabra, presto changeo. So thank you very much for watching this week. Thanks for being with me. Thanks for standing by me. I'll leave you with this last song. Once again, all the information for how to tip, if you're so inclined, is at the very beginning of the comments at the start of today's live stream. And if you're watching on YouTube, it's at the beginning of the chat window, which you may have to open to be able to see. Recordings and information about my Patreon page as well are there. So, hope you've enjoyed today's show. Hope you join me next week. Stay well. Stay sane. Make sure you vote.
Well, I hope I see you later, 'cause it's time for me to go. That's my ride that just pulled over, and it sure was good to know you. So go answer your calling, go and fill somebody's cup. If you see an angel falling, won't you stop and help them up? We are each other's angels, and we meet when it is time. We keep each other going, and we show each other signs. Sometimes you'll stumble, sometimes you'll just lie down, sometimes you will get lonely with all these people around. You might shiver when the wind blows, and you might get blown away. You might lose a little color, you might lose a little faith. We are each other's angels, and we meet when it is time. We keep each other going, and we show each other signs. of the water. Thought I was gonna die out here in the desert, but you quenched my thirst. Let's break a little bread together. Got a little manna. It was a gift from someone who was passing by and offered me a lift. We are each other's angels, and we meet when it is time. We keep each other going, and we show each other signs.
Be well. Stay healthy. See you next time. Thank you.